Anyway, welcome. My name is Joshua Roy and I'm a seminar leader and life coach, and I've been doing so for the last several years. Really love the journey, love sharing the ideas of neurological repatterning and life coaching with others, so that all people who want it can actually get the help that they need to progress faster than you can progress on your own. And I think about this and I think, well, isn't there so much information on YouTube? There's so much there on YouTube that we can constantly be learning. We can constantly be opening our mind to new ideas. However, neurological repatterning is about learning at a different level. It's about creating what's called paradigm shifts. You see, we can shift incrementally and make incremental progress, but when we shift on a paradigm or shift the way we identify ourselves or who we are, suddenly we get massive changes out there in life. So if you can shift an emotion that's holding you back, and suddenly that emotion's gone, disbanded, gone, released, repressed emotion, whatever it is, suddenly your life changes. So it's the old adage of, if you change something outside of yourself, that's a slight change. But you change something internally and your whole world changes. One man said that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So you change the way that you see things, they change. Yeah. It's the same with our identity, it's the same with who we are. When we change something about our identity, we suddenly see the whole world in a different way. Okay? You go from selfish to being loving, it's a huge shift, and everything in your life changes. Okay, so these little shifts internally, it's like the hinge of a door. Tiny hinge, and yet the door swings wide open. And so do people's lives. You see, if those hinges represent our decisions, our choices, and the door opening represents the results, these internal changes, the internal shifts can create massive change externally. So it's a very exciting process. Anyway, so what I do as a neurological repatterning expert and a life coach is I help people in 4 ways. One way is through seminars. So I'll teach seminars which are saturation environments. The beauty of a saturation environment is that you wear down the conscious mind, your conscious rational brain. And after a time when that wears down, it sometimes checks out. And then we can shovel information directly into the unconscious mind. So it's a lot of fun. And then you watch people and the shifts start to happen below the surface of conscious thought. So that's one thing we do is seminars. Another thing we do is neurological repatterning. And so a neurological repatterning session might consist of, for example, example one that I use a lot is an NLP technique. Who's heard of NLP? Neuro-linguistic programming. So NLP was designed by Roger Brandler and John Grinder back about 35 so years ago. They studied 3 psychologists that were doing fantastic. They were just getting massive results. One was Pearl Fritz, one was Milton Erickson, and the other was Virginia Satir. And so they devised a system using these 3 psychologists and the results that they were getting to find out what was underneath or what they were doing similarly to each other. And they devised a whole system around that. And this is something that I use today all the time. I'm using NLP every day of my life. It's just become part of my daily way of thinking, way of being. And so a neurological repatterning session would be where I take somebody and we create a new neural pathway in their brain. For example, they may have a strategy that they run consistently in their life. Like every time somebody says something negative to them, they may think a negative thought, feel a negative feeling, and go into a bit of a depressive feeling in their body. And it may affect them for the next 10 minutes, or 15 minutes, or some people the next 20 years.
Yes.
Isn't it true?
Yes.
Some people live in that place. And so when something happens to us, we have a strategy set up in our body of how we perceive reality. And so if somebody very negative comes along and says something, we have a way to deal with that. Now some people deal with it very effectively. They believe that, for example, that the person might be speaking to their clothing. And then when they take the clothing off and put it in the washing machine, that's it. There's no more insult. But other people take things personally. And when somebody says something, especially someone close to you, someone you care about, someone whose opinion really matters, and they start firing darts at you, isn't it easy to take that on board and think about it over and over again and feel discouraged and feel less than about ourselves. And so I might take somebody with a strategy like this, and what we'll do is in a session, we will rewire a new strategy into their neurology. And so I'll teach them a new strategy through a series of questions, through a series of understanding what strategy they're using. And here's how I do it. I'll ask them, when they say that nasty thing to you, do you make pictures in your mind? What is it they actually say that you're hearing? Do you get feelings in your body? And where are those feelings located? And if there was a colour attached to it, what colour would it be? And I start to devise their strategy. I start to break it down into small chunk sizes so they can understand what's actually happening in their body step by step. Once we've got all the steps, it could be a 6-step strategy, then what I'll do is I go and scramble them. So I go and ask them another series of questions, and I'll mess with their brain, mess with their mind, mess with their thinking, and I'll scramble the old strategy. And then by the end of it, what we'll do is we'll install a new strategy directly into the unconscious mind. And this is a lot of fun. I mean, I really enjoy doing this. It can be entertaining. It can also be very, very real for someone, especially if they're dealing with abuse or something very serious. Okay, and in those times, we've got to be serious with them and to help them to move from being perhaps a victim and staying in victim to being victor, to being someone who can break free of these limiting patterns and beliefs. Okay, so that's one way that I might do it. Another way might be that I'll take somebody and I'll use the knuckles of their hand to create different anchors. Who's heard of Pavlov? Ivan Pavlov and the dogs. I'm sure you have. Okay, you heard of Pavlov? So Ivan Pavlov had a number of dogs who responded to the ringing of a bell. Straight after ringing the bell, he would feed the dogs and they would salivate. This was a test done many years ago. And what he noticed is that the dogs began to salivate just at the ringing of the bell. So they linked up that the bell meant food was on its way. And because the bell meant food was on its way, the dog's natural response to food is salivation. Now what happened was, even when the food wasn't presented, the dogs would still salivate. So we use the same techniques today. NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, put together several methods of how to use this with somebody. And so I just mentioned the knuckles. What I might do is say, okay, what's the depressed feeling that you're feeling? And we might have a depressed feeling, which is extreme sadness. Get rid of it.
That is sad.
You might have extreme sadness here, and I'd say, what feeling would you prefer? And they might say, well, extreme happiness would be great. Would it not? To go from extreme sadness to extreme happiness?
Yeah.
So then I say, well, that's a bit big of a jump. I think we need some connecting emotions. Do you think that?
It's romantic.
Yeah, that is. What you created here is bipolar.
That's exactly right.
But we don't want that. What I'm going to do is lead somebody out of this state into a new place. Yeah, we don't want that. We don't want the bipolar disorder. Okay, so what we'll do is extreme sadness here. We could then go for another state, which is sadness, just sadness. So we're going from extreme to just sad. We're just feeling annoyed or really upset. Okay? Then we might go to something like joy. You know, smiling joy. It's like a forced joy. It's like trying to feel joy. You know, when you smile, you know, fake it till you make it, that type of thing. Maybe it's just a smile, but the emotions haven't quite caught up, but it's just a smile to, you know, fake it till you make it type thing. And then here we could have extreme happiness, which is still big leap from joy. I used this process just at the seminar I just did. And as I use this process, we linked the knuckles together and the results are fantastic. See, what happened was, I fired off the anchor once I'd finished, and I linked up every one of these 3 times. For example, and I'll explain it really quickly. So what we do is I'd say, go back to a time when you felt extremely sad. And you know what she said? I've just got so many to choose from. She had this whole bag full of sad, negative, even suicidal feelings. So this is real life stuff. This is people with real issues, dealing with real deep problems. You know, she's been exposed to me then, but she's told me that there were some issues growing up, led into her relationships, led into her life, and now she's at a point where, is it worth going on? That's how she was feeling. What we did was, I said, I want you to feel extremely sad, and she had many things to choose from, and she went into that sadness 3 times. I went with her. And so what I did was got her to feel it, and I touched the little knuckle. Got her to feel the sadness, touched the little knuckle. I did it a 3rd time. And then after that I said, now it gets better. And she said, thank goodness. Because now we're going to a happy place, right? So then we just went to sadness. I said, think about a time you were just sad. We took it at those times, 3 times. And just like Pavlov's dog with the bell or the triangle, whichever it was. Instead of a tuning fork, I believe it was. Whatever it was, okay, it only took a few sessions to get those dogs to believe that that bell or that tuning fork meant food was on its way. It's the same with your neurology. It only takes once if it's really strong. 2 or 3 times just to be sure. We want to lock it in nice and strong. And so I went to sadness and I said, 3 times you're sad. Touch the knuckle 3 times. I then said smiling joy. Let's go to smiling joy. Can you think about a time where you were just, forcing yourself to be happy? She said, yeah, I can think about times like that in social settings. When other people come over, things like that. Parties. Everyone else is jumping around smiling and she's hurting here but she's smiling on the outside. I said, go there. Think about those times. Get that feeling in your body. And she did. Smiling joy. And then we said, what about extreme happiness? And you know what? We've been jumping in the seminar. We've been creating some magical feelings in her body. And I said, think about how good you felt today. And she was able to get 3 times where she felt fantastic. Then, once I'd linked them all in, so 3 times each, then what we did was I touched the first knuckle, and then I created a bridge by linking the second knuckle and the first together. Then I released the 4th knuckle, touched the second knuckle. Released the 3rd knuckle, touched the first knuckle, released the second knuckle, and then finally released the first knuckle. And everyone who was in the room, and Leonie was there, I don't think Chris was there, but everyone was in the room, watched, and they saw the change in her countenance. They actually literally saw her shoulders lift. I've actually put it up on YouTube, so you can actually go and have a look at that whole process and how it works. So exciting? Yeah. Anyway, she's gone home and she said that dark cloud that I had over me has now gone. I'm waking up joyful. I'm waking up happy. Why? We created a new pathway in her brain. That's what a neurological repatterning session is all about. It's creating a new pathway. It's about getting those old beliefs, those old patterns.
She'll do that herself at home?
No, she doesn't need to do this.
Or it's now,
this is now part of it. It's now transition from the knuckles into her unconscious mind.
Okay.
So that's the transition. Pretty good? Pretty fun? Okay, so this is what I do. This is what I enjoy doing. Helping people at a neurological level. So that's what neurological repatterning is about. The 3rd thing that I do is life coaching. Now what's life coaching? After somebody's been to the seminar, preferably, what I'll do is I'll help a person to maintain some of the habits and behaviours they want to develop. You see, seminars give a person a boost in their thinking, a boost in their psychology. Because you can imagine, if you're watching these processes happening, you suddenly open up your mind to what's possible. You suddenly see, wow, what is possible? I mean, for example, I have people come up and they'll say that they've got pain in their body. Pain to a level 6 or 7 or 8. And I'll say, do you want that pain in your body? And I say, well, no, because who does, right? And then I'll say, well, point to it. Think of a colour associated with it. Let's get it out. Let's spin it in a different direction. And then we shove it back in. And in 10 minutes, I can have somebody get rid of the pain in their body. Because pain's created in the mind. And what we do is, using energy, we give the brain a new signal. We can reverse whatever's going on in that part of the body. And we can get rid of pain. Now, pain's a good thing. We don't want to get rid of all pain. And so that's why I'll ask them at the beginning, is it okay to get rid of this? Because pain actually is a good teacher. What does pain do? Corrects, protects, and it unifies. So if you have no pain and you've got a broken leg, what are you going to do? You're going to try and run. So pain actually helps us to not injure ourselves further, to not cause more damage. And so some pain is good. And so getting rid of pain willy-nilly is not what I'm about. But if, let's say a person has an accident and they've got a chronic pain, and that chronic pain continues after structurally that person is back to normal. That pain is no longer serving a purpose. That pain is just an irritant. And a pain like that is usually attached to a repressed emotion in the nervous system. And if we can dig deep and find that repressed emotion and release it, we can get rid of the pain. And so that's another thing that I do, is help people to eliminate pain, especially long-term pains. For example, just about a week ago, there's a woman, actually a guy that I was speaking to, and I was talking about what I did, and he said, actually my wife has a pain in her back, and she's been to see the doctor, and they can't find anything wrong with her. But there's something going on there, I don't know what it is. I said, well, he said, can you help her? I said, well, we could try. Because I don't know what's going to work. I don't know if it's going to work, 100% of the time, every single time. In fact, in my experience, it works about 98% of the time. And I've probably used it on about 300 people today, and most people it works with effectively. Some people it doesn't. It's designed not to work for everyone, perhaps. I don't know. But I know that if you follow the steps, it works. That's what I know, and that's what I tell people. If you follow the steps, it works. She followed the steps explicitly. She did exactly what I asked her to do. She focused. She was fully absorbed. She played pretend like she was a little girl, following the steps that I told her. She did the motions. She got right involved. She did the whole process, and the pain was gone. Evaporated. Shed. And it was wonderful. And this is a pain that she'd had for several years. A back pain, right in the middle of her back. And suddenly the pain was gone. Straight after doing it, she was bending over and said, I couldn't do this a minute ago. And she's bending right down, touching her toes. It was amazing. Miracle! Once you understand how the brain works, it's really not a miracle at all. Because we're using it's called proprioception. You've heard of proprioception? And we're also using energy in the body. And using the mind and our imagination to then take control of what's going on. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay. So, what are we going to talk about tonight? I'm going to start by telling you a couple of stories. Oh, sorry, let's have the last thing. Life coaching, neurological repatterning, and workshops. So tonight, welcome, you're at a workshop. So those are the 4 things that I do. So seminars, workshops, neurological repatterning, and life coaching.